And with that, let me now shift focus over to the United Kingdom. UK's politics has now taken a wild turn in the last 24 hours. From Interior Minister Suella Braverman being sacked to the comeback of a former Prime Minister David Cameron has made a stunning return to 10 Downing Street as the new Foreign Secretary. Now, James Cleverly has been appointed as the new Interior Minister. Remember, he is the former Foreign Secretary, and Cameron will take up now his role as the Foreign Secretary. While former Prime Ministers returning to government in lesser roles has happened before as well, Cameron's comeback is particularly rare. The last time a former Prime Minister returned to the cabinet was more than 50 years ago, and David Cameron quit as Prime Minister and bid adieu to politics back in the year 2016. The timing of this is extremely crucial. Why so? Because he left after losing the Brexit referendum, one that he did conduct but was against the idea of UK leaving the EU. He also stepped down as a Member of Parliament the same year. The former leader gladly accepted the role as Britain faces a daunting set of international challenges. What are those challenges going to be, and what explains this recent cabinet reshuffle? We'll delve into that deeper with CNN News 18's Sanjay Suri. But before that, let me play out some very crucial reactions, starting with David Cameron's.
Well, I know it's not usual for a Prime Minister to come back in this way, but I believe in public service. The Prime Minister asked me to do this job, and it's a time where we have some daunting challenges as a country. The conflict in the Middle East, the war in Ukraine, and of course, I hope that 6 years as Prime Minister, 11 years leading the Conservative Party gives me some useful experience and contacts and relationships and knowledge that I can help the Prime Minister to make sure we build our alliances, we build partnerships with our friends, we deter our enemies, and we keep our country strong. That's why I'm doing the job, and I'm delighted to accept. I've disagreed with some individual decisions, but politics is a team enterprise. I've decided to join this team because I believe Rishi Sunak is a good Prime Minister doing a difficult job at a hard time. I want to support him. I'm a member of the team, and I accept the Cabinet collective responsibility that comes with that.
UK Prime Minister David Cameron arrived back in Downing Street on Monday to take up a surprise new role as Foreign Minister and the new title of Baron. Current leader Rishi Sunak shuffled his cabinet and handed a life peerage to Cameron, who stepped away from politics in 2016 after the Brexit vote to pull Britain out of the European Union.
Are you getting sacked for telling the truth, Home Secretary?
The PM's long-planned reset was finally triggered by the firing of Interior Minister Suella Braverman over her criticism of police, an act which threatened Sunak's own authority. The ruling but divided Conservative parties badly lagging the opposition Labour Party ahead of a general election expected next year. And the return of a beaming Cameron suggests Sunak might want to bring in more centrist, experienced hands rather than appease the right of his party, which supported Braverman.
Morning.
Opposition lawmakers described Cameron's return as an act of desperation. It may also awaken divisive debate over Brexit, which Cameron himself opposed before resigning after 6 years at the helm.
But I do not think it would be right for me to try to be the captain that steers our country to its next destination.
Since then, the UK has had a few captains in Downing Street. The latest was forced to act against his Interior Minister after she defied him last week by penning an unauthorised newspaper article. Braverman accused police of double standards at protests, suggesting they were tough on right-wing demonstrators but easy on pro-Palestinian marchers. Critics said that inflamed tensions between a pro-Palestinian demonstration and a far-right counter-protest on Saturday, when hundreds of thousands took to the streets of London and nearly 150 people were arrested.
I intend to do this job in the way that I feel best protects the British people and our interests.
James Cleverly, previously Foreign Minister, was appointed to replace Braverman. Her attention might now focus on preparing for a possible future race for leader of the party if next year's election goes against the Conservatives.
So all bets indicate that this is a preparation for next year's election. Let's try and get in a sense of perspective from CNN News 18. Sanjay Suri was joining me live from London. Sanjay, thank you so much. It's very good to see you there. Now, both Cleverly and Cameron are regarded as moderates, and the changes, of course, signal a shift away from the divisive politics that has been championed by Ms. Braverman and the right-wing faction of the Conservatives. What explains Sunak's current swerve to centre?
Well, it is exactly that. It is a desire to appear centrist, a desire to bring different factions together, to bring even opposing and conflicting views together, to reconcile differences. These differences have arisen in the past over Brexit, and that issue is not quite over yet, because Brexit is not really working for Britain. Economically, Britain is suffering. There's a labour shortage. There is a huge trade difficulty now with the EU. There is a continuing political friction with the EU, and that has not been replaced by any trade deal with the US. That's not happening at all. The one being negotiated with India has been delayed on and on. So Brexit hasn't quite delivered. That is the position that Rishi Sunak had championed, that had been opposed by Cameron when he was Prime Minister. There is a move now to try and reconcile differences primarily within the Conservative Party, where these divisions are rising alarmingly, and also in the wider electorate, because the party is preparing for elections next year.
You know, that is what makes the entire situation extremely ironical, considering you said that Brexit has not really delivered. Then what does David Cameron's return to the cabinet signify, despite the chaos that was triggered by Brexit, a referendum he had to conduct but did not believe in?
Well, you're quite right to say that what then does Cameron bring? Certainly he's not about to reverse Brexit in line with his earlier views, but he could perhaps signal a more conciliatory approach. He might be more acceptable in the EU as the new face of Britain's foreign policy. Given his positions earlier, he could try to work out compromises with the EU that would be a little more welcome in the EU than they have been so far, given hostile noises that have been made within the Conservative Party and within the government in relation to the EU arising from Brexit. But of course, there is a question how far he can surrender the policy of Brexit that the government has adopted. And that's why the change that he might bring is not very clear. He is certainly the face of conciliation. Whether he can actually bring policies of reconciliation that are significantly divergent from the current policies is not very clear at all. It's rather a vague signal of inclusion towards winning the party members together ahead of the elections.
Absolutely. One thing that remains crystal clear is that the clock is ticking and the Conservatives don't have much time on hand.